The jungle planet Veritarn was quiet, covered in thick green trees and glowing blue flowers. Birds with crystal wings flew between branches. Strange animals with soft fur watched silently from the shadows. Beneath the peaceful beauty, something ancient was hidden. A team of alien archaeologists, led by the wise old Professor Varkle, had come to explore. They were from many different species, tall, insect-like beings, short ones with glowing eyes, and floating jellyfish with translator devices. They worked together to study lost places and forgotten histories. One day, while digging near a hill shaped like a sleeping giant, they discovered something unexpected, a huge stone door covered in carvings. The door was buried deep underground and protected by strange energy fields. It's old. Older than anything we've ever found on Veriturn, said Professor Varkle, brushing dust off the symbols. In these writings, they don't match any known language. They worked for weeks to open the door. Finally, with care and precision, the team entered a large chamber made of smooth silver stone and glowing crystals. Inside, at the center of the room, floated a beautiful sword, long, thin, and shining like starlight. It had no strings, no support. It just hung there in the air, unmoving, untouched by time. The sword pulsed gently with a soft hum, as if it was alive. Is it ... floating? Whispered one of the researchers, eyes wide. Impossible, muttered another. There's no anti-gravity. Tech here. Professor Varkle read aloud the carvings around the platform. The symbols slowly translated themselves through the team's neural implants. The words echoed inside their minds. Only one whose heart knows true compassion may lift the blade and awaken the guardian. The team was confused. Compassion? It was not a common trait in the galaxy. Most leaders and warriors valued strength, strategy, and control. Compassion was seen as weakness. Still, the news spread quickly across the Galactic Union. Many were curious about the Varelian Fang, as the sword was now called. Was it a weapon? A tool? Or just an old myth? Many came to try and lift the sword. Soldiers, monks, bounty hunters, and leaders from many alien worlds stood before it. They reached out their hands, confident and proud. But the sword refused them all. Some were pushed away by a gentle force. Others felt nothing at all. Days turned into weeks. The sword remained untouched. Far away, on a human colony station, a quiet woman named Dr. Samira Lee was working in her small lab. She was a xenoanthropologist, a scientist who studied alien cultures and ancient civilizations. Unlike others in her field, she did not care about fame or treasure. She loved learning stories and helping others understand their past. One morning, she received an invitation. It was from Professor Varkle himself. Dr. Lee, we found something you might want to see. Bring your kindness and your questions. We'll bring the tea. Samira smiled. She had always admired Varkle's sense of humor when Samira arrived on Veriturn. The team welcomed her politely, but did not expect much. She was not strong or powerful. She wore simple clothes and carried books instead of weapons. She began her work by carefully studying the writings around the sword. She made no attempt to touch it. Instead, she spent time with the Turillians. The native people of Veriturn. The Turillians had once been caretakers of the planet's temples and forests. Now, they lived quietly in small villages, mostly ignored by the galaxy. Samira didn't ignore them. She listened to their stories, helped teach their children to read, and treated the elders with respect. You are different from the others, said an old Turillian woman named Rala. Her scales faded with age. The blade... It watches you. Samira laughed gently. I'm just here to learn. But something was happening. Every time Samira entered the chamber, the hum of the sword grew louder, so soft only the instruments could detect it, but it was real. The lights in the crystals glowed a little brighter when she walked past. Some said it was coincidence. Others began to wonder. Professor Varkle noticed too. She's not trying to take the sword, he said quietly to his assistant one evening. And perhaps that is why it responds. One evening, after helping a young Tyrillian fix a broken translator, Samira sat alone in the temple chamber, writing notes. She looked up at the sword and felt something, not a sound, not a voice, but a feeling. It was warm, curious, and gentle, like a friend reaching out. "Hello?" she whispered, unsure why. The sword pulsed once, softly, like a heartbeat. Samira blinked. Was it her imagination? She did not reach for it. Instead, she closed her notebook and stood. "You're waiting for someone?" she said to the sword. "Maybe not me, but someone kind. Someone who listens." The sword remained still, but the hum continued, faint and steady. Outside the chamber, a storm gathered in the skies of Veritarn. Something was coming, but for now, inside the ancient temple, the sword hovered in silence, still waiting. And somewhere, deep in the planet's heart, the Guardian began to stir. The planet Veritarn had secrets hidden under its trees and stones, but not all of its treasures were old. Some were still alive. The native people, the Tyrillians, had lived there long before the rest of the galaxy even knew the planet existed. Their skin was smooth and shiny like stone polished by rain. They looked like tall lizards with gentle eyes and slow movements. They once cared for the temples and the forests. But after the planet was added to the Galactic Union, their voices were forgotten. Outsiders built towers and labs, and the Tyrillians were told to stay quiet, but Dr. Samira Lee did not see them as simple natives. To her, they were keepers of memory every morning. After studying the sword in the ancient chamber, Samira would walk down to the Tyrillian village. She brought clean paper, writing tools, and storybooks. Children gathered around her, their bright eyes full of curiosity. She taught them to read, and in return, they taught her songs, poems, and legends. One of those legends spoke of the Guardian, a being of light and metal who once protected the innocent. The Guardian had gone to sleep when hearts turned cold. Only a person with a warm heart could wake it. Samira listened closely. Other scientists and visitors did not understand her. To them, she was wasting time. "She's playing schoolteacher." "With lizards," whispered one of the engineers. "She's too soft," said a pilot. "This is about science and power, not feelings." But Professor Varkle defended her. "Let her be," he said. "Sometimes softness sees things that force cannot." Still, more attention was coming to Veritarn. A powerful alien named Korak of the Draghun had arrived. It was tall, strong, and covered in red battle armor. His people were known for controlling 10 planets with strict rules and harsh leadership. Korak walked into the temple chamber with loud footsteps and a proud voice. "I have come to lift the sword," he announced. "I am a leader of warriors. I have conquered many. This blade will be mine." Samira, sitting in the corner with her notebook, looked up quietly but said nothing. Korak stepped forward, reached out his hand, and nothing happened. The sword remained floating, calm and untouched. A soft hum echoed in the chamber, but there was no movement. The room fell silent. Korak frowned. "This weapon is broken." Professor Varkle shook his head. "It is not a weapon, and it is not broken." Later that evening, Samira walked back to the Tyrillian village. The sky above was a soft purple, and glowing insects floated in the air like stars. She sat by the fire with an elder named Nimmer, who painted old symbols on smooth stones. Nimmer was quiet but kind. "Why do so many want the sword?" he asked. "Maybe they think it will give them power," Samira replied. "But power is not always strength," Nimmer said, tapping his chest. "Sometimes it is what you carry here." Samira smiled. She liked Nimmer's way of speaking. She looked up at the stars. "Do you think... the Guardian is real?" Nimmer nodded. "He is asleep, but he watches. The sword is his eye, and maybe one day he will open it again." Back at the research camp, more challengers came to try and lift the sword. A famous psychic, a champion fighter, even a robot built. For perfect balance and strength, none succeeded. Each time. The sword simply stayed, still, calm, silent, waiting. Samira, as always, made no attempt. She watched, listened, and continued her quiet work. One day, a small Turlian girl named Luma ran up to Samira, holding a drawing. It showed Samira standing beside the sword, with bright light shining all around her. "Is this me?" Samira asked. With a laugh, "Yes," said Luma. "You're the one from the song." Samira looked surprised. "What song?"
Ow.
Luma sang softly in her own language. The words translated slowly in Samira's mind. One who brings peace, not fear. One who listens with both heart and ear. When her hand meets sky and stone, the sleeping light will not be alone. Samira blinked. The words echoed in her heart. That night she returned to the temple chamber alone. The others were at the camp, talking, arguing, making plans. She stood before the sword, her hands behind her back. "You've been waiting a long time," she whispered. "But I still don't know what you want." The sword gave no answer. But the hum was stronger, now warm and low. Like a song sung beneath the surface of the earth, she reached out a hand, but didn't touch it. "Maybe you're waiting for someone who's not afraid to be kind," she said. "I don't know if that's me." Then, from deep below the floor, something stirred. Very softly, a movement. A flicker of light in the cracks between stones. She stepped back, eyes wide. Was the Guardian.
Night waking.
The next day news came from the Galactic Union. They were sending more officials. They wanted to take control of the sword and the chamber. Talks of ownership and galactic safety filled the air. Samira walked through the village with heavy thoughts. The Turilians looked nervous. She sat beside Nimmer again. "They want to take the sword," she said. "They do not understand." Nimmer replied. "But maybe you will show them?" Samira looked down at her hands. "I'm not special. You listen, you care. That is already rare." She said nothing, but inside her heart was full of quiet fire. Far below, the Guardian felt it too, and soon the test would come. The ancient sword still floated quietly in the center of the temple chamber. It had not moved, not even a little, since the day it was discovered. Many had tried to lift it, and all had failed. But still, more people kept coming, some out of curiosity, others for fame, and some because they believed they were the chosen one. Now, the jungle planet Veriturn was more crowded than ever before. Dozens of ships had landed near the old temple. Tents, machines, and glowing towers filled the area. The quiet peace of the forest had turned into a noisy camp filled with technology. Flashing lights and loud voices. At the center of all this stood a large, open platform made of smooth metal. This was where the Galactic Union had set up the contest of strength. It was Korak of the Droghun who suggested the contest. With his strong voice and powerful armor, he had convinced the Union leaders that the sword needed to be claimed. "This is not a toy for poets and scholars," he had said. "It is a weapon. It belongs to the strongest. Let the galaxy see who is worthy." The Union agreed. They believed that whoever lifted the sword would become famous and possibly powerful. So they allowed the contest to begin. People from across the galaxy signed up. There were warriors, scientists with enhanced suits, mind readers, and even a floating gas being in a sealed container. Each came with great pride, ready to prove themselves. Dr. Samira Lee stood at the edge of the crowd, notebook in hand. She wasn't here to compete. She only wanted to observe. But deep inside, something felt wrong. "This isn't what the temple was built for," she whispered to herself. "It's not a stage for showing off." Beside her, Professor Varkle nodded. "I agree." But the Union rarely listens to gentle voices. The first day of the contest was full of activity. One by one, the challengers stepped onto the stone platform where the sword floated. Each of them reached for it with strong hands or glowing energy fields. Some laughed, some chanted. One even sang a battle song. The sword stayed still for all. Of them, one psychic from the planet Zura claimed she felt something, but when she tried to lift the blade, her energy faded. The sword gave no answer. Korak himself made a second attempt, wearing a special suit built to boost his strength. His hands wrapped around the hilt, but the sword did not move even a little. His followers tried to cheer, but the chamber remained silent, the same soft hum in the air. After the first round, the mood changed. People began to argue. Some said the sword was a trick. Others said it was waiting for the right code. A few even claimed the Tyrillians were hiding a secret key. Samira stayed calm. She spent time with the Tyrillians, helping them avoid the noise and confusion of the contest. She brought fresh water and food to the children and helped an injured elder find a quiet place to rest. That night, she sat near the fire with little Luma, the Tyrillian girl who had once drawn a picture of her and the sword. "Why don't you?" "Try," Luma asked softly. Samira shook her head. "'Cause I don't need the sword." Luma tilted her head. "Maybe that's why it needs you." Samira smiled, but she didn't answer. The second day of the contest began with a new challenger, a large robot built by a tech company from the moon world Zenthor. Its hands were made of rare metals, and its strength was said to match 10 engines. The robot moved smoothly toward the sword and grabbed it with careful arms. For a moment, some thought the sword shimmered, but then nothing happened. The robot's arms made a small clicking sound, like gears slowing down. Once again, the sword did not move. After that, the contest began to lose its excitement. People were tired. Some started to whisper that the sword could never be lifted. But Samira noticed something else. Every time someone tried to take the sword by force, the crystals in the chamber dimmed slightly. The hum grew quieter. It was as if the temple itself was growing sad. Later that evening, Korak stood before the crowd once more. "This is useless," he shouted. "No one can lift the sword. It is broken, or it has no master. We should take it apart and study its parts." The crowd murmured. Some nodded. Others looked unsure. Samira stepped forward. She didn't plan to, but her feet moved. Before her mind could stop them, "The sword is not broken," she said clearly. "It's just ... waiting." Korak turned to her, surprised. "And who are you to speak?" "I'm no one important," she replied. "I just listen. To the people. To the planet." The ancient sword inside the silver temple chamber was no longer quiet. After many weeks of silence, it had glowed for the first time. The soft light had appeared when Dr. Samira Lee spoke gently to the crowd, not to impress, but simply to share the truth in her heart. Now, the chamber felt different. The hum of the sword was warmer, deeper, almost like a breath. The crystals in the walls pulsed with soft light, and the stone beneath the sword was no longer cold. Something deep inside the temple had started to awaken. Early the next morning, Samira returned to the temple with Professor Varkle and a few trusted Tyrillians. The rest of the research team stayed outside. After what happened yesterday, the Galactic Union had declared a temporary stop to the contest of strength.
Ow.
No one was allowed to try touching the sword. Samira stood near the floating blade. Again, holding her notebook, she didn't try to touch it. Instead, she simply looked at it, then turned her eyes to the carvings on the walls. "These patterns," she said to Varkle, pointing to a spiral shape. "They're not just decoration. They match the star map I saw in the Tyrillian songs." Professor Varkle adjusted his glasses. "You're right. They mark something below. Maybe a deeper part of the temple." Suddenly one of the crystals glowed brighter in the spiral symbol. On the wall rotated with a soft click. The floor beneath the sword began to shift, slowly. Without any sound of machines, a hidden staircase opened. Everyone stepped back, surprised. "Another chamber?" Varkle said softly. Samira nodded. "I think the sword is only part of the story." The hidden staircase led downward, into the heart of the temple. The air below was cool, but not uncomfortable. Glowing stones lit the way with a gentle blue light. The walls were made of smooth silver and carved with more ancient symbols. Some looked like hands, others like stars, and many showed a tall figure standing beside smaller ones. At the bottom of the stairs was a wide circular room, completely silent. In the center stood a tall pillar of glass, and inside it was a figure metal, light, and crystal. Its eyes were closed, and its arms rested by its sides. It was the Guardian. He was not a machine, and not fully alive either. He looked like a person made of glowing metal and living energy. A symbol of peace rested on his chest, shaped like a hand held open. "He's beautiful," whispered Samira. The Tyrillians bowed their heads, their eyes full of wonder. A soft voice, neither male nor female, suddenly filled the room. It did not come from speakers. It came from everywhere. "The guardian sleeps. The blade still waits. Kindness has touched the chamber's heart. One more truth remains." Samira looked around, said that. Professor Varkle tapped his translator device. "It's the temple itself," he said. An ancient voice, maybe an AI or something older. The voice spoke again. "Before the blade can be lifted, the heart must be clear. A test of compassion must be passed, not in strength, not in speech, but in a simple choice." A circle of light appeared on the floor. Inside it, a smooth stone rose up. On the stone lay two small objects. One was a golden crystal shaped like a star, and the other was a simple, clear glass bead. Samira stepped closer. The voice explained, "One object will unlock the sword's power. The other will do nothing. Choose with your heart, not your mind." Samira felt her pulse quicken. She looked at both objects. The golden star was bright and beautiful. It looked like something full of power. The glass bead was plain and soft, almost invisible in the light. She thought about the visitors who had come, about Korak, the soldiers, the scientists who wanted strength. All of them would have chosen the golden star without a second thought. But Samira paused. She thought about the Tyrillians, about the children who drew pictures, the elders who shared their stories, the planet itself with its quiet kindness. They never chased power. They shared. They listened. Samira reached out and gently picked up the glass bead. The moment her fingers touched it, the chamber filled with light. The guardian's eyes opened. A wave of calm flowed through the room, like a warm breeze passing over a field. The guardian's body shimmered with color silver, gold, and soft green. He looked at Samira and stepped forward slowly, as if waking from a long dream. "You chose wisely," the guardian said in a clear, calm voice. "The path of kindness is not easy. Many walk past it. But you stopped. You listened." Samira didn't speak. Her throat felt tight, simply nodded. The guardian raised one hand. Above them, back in the chamber above, the sword glowed with a new light brighter than ever before. The blade hummed with joy, and then gently, it lowered itself onto the stone floor. "No one can take the blade by force," the guardian continued. "It chooses only one whose heart holds compassion, not as a tool, but as a way of life." He placed his hand on Samira's shoulder. "You may now lift it, if you wish. Not to rule, but to guide." Samira slowly climbed the stairs back into the main chamber. Everyone had gathered. Korak stood at the back, watching in silence. The other scientists, union officers, and villagers waited. Samira walked to the sword. The blade no longer floated. It now rested quietly on the stone. It glowed with soft light, as if waiting. She reached down with both hands. The moment her fingers touched it, a warm energy filled the room. The sword lifted as light as air, yet strong as steel. It pulsed once like a heartbeat. Gasps filled the chamber, but Samira said nothing. She only held the sword gently, then lowered it back to its resting place. "I don't need to carry it," she said softly. "It's only to protect the one who will." The guardian stood beside her, silent and proud. Far away, the stars above Veritern shimmered, as if watching. Something had changed. The true path had begun. The sword lay quietly on the stone once again, but this time, everything felt different in the temple. The light that had filled the chamber was still there, soft and steady, like a heartbeat that no one could see but everyone could feel. Outside the temple, the camp was unusually quiet. The contest had ended, but the news had spread quickly. Everyone was talking about the sword and the guardian. They were curious about the kind-hearted human who had lifted it not by force, but by compassion. Dr. Samira Lee sat by the fire with Professor Varkle and some of the Tyrillian elders. The Tyrillians, once shy and quiet, now spoke freely. They shared stories about the guardian, about the ancient times when he protected their world, and about the hope that one day kindness would return to the galaxy. Samira listened carefully. She felt honored to be part of something so old and so new. Professor Varkle smiled at her. You have changed the course of history, Samira. Not with weapons or power, but with a simple choice. Samira looked into the fire. I just did what felt right. But now what happens next? That question was answered faster than anyone expected. The Galactic Union sent a message, inviting Samira and the Tyrillians to a council meeting. They wanted to discuss how the sword and the Guardian's power should be used. Would it become a symbol of peace? Or would some try to control it for their own gain? Samira knew the answer had to come from everyone, not just the leaders at the council of representatives. From many planets sat around a large table. Some were kind and thoughtful. Others looked doubtful or greedy. Korak sat with his arms crossed, watching everything carefully. Samira stood before them, holding the sword carefully in her hands. The sword does not belong to any one person or planet, she said clearly. It belongs to all who choose kindness over power. There were murmurs in the room. The Guardian awakened because we forgot how to listen, she continued. It is a reminder that strength is not in ruling others, but in protecting and caring for them. One by one, the representatives spoke. Some agreed, inspired by the idea of peace and cooperation. Others worried about the dangers. What if enemies tried to steal the sword? What if someone less kind tried to use its power? Samira nodded. These were real fears. She believed the answer was not in fear, but in trust. The Guardian and the sword are a test, she said. Not just for me, but for all of us. If we choose kindness, we can build a better future. But if we choose fear, the sword will remain silent. Back on Veritarn, life began to change. The Galactic Union agreed to protect the temple. But instead of sending soldiers or machines, they sent teachers, healers, and artists. The planet became a place of learning and peace, where people from many worlds came to listen to the Tyrillians and to each other. Samira worked with the Tyrillians to teach about the Guardian story. She helped build schools where young ones learned about kindness, respect, and the power of caring hearts. The children, like Luma, laughed and played under the bright stars, their eyes full of hope. One evening, Samira walked alone to the temple. The sky was filled with stars. The soft glow of the sword welcomed her like an old friend. She reached out her hand and touched the hilt gently. The sword hummed softly. You trusted the simple path, a calm voice said nearby. It was the Guardian standing silently by her side. Samira smiled. I only did what I thought was right. The Guardian looked toward the horizon, where the light of many planets shone. Kindness is the true power, he said. It is not easy. It asks for patience, courage, and hope. But it is the light that guides us through the darkest times. Samira nodded. I want to help keep that light alive. In the days that followed, news of the sword's awakening spread across the galaxy. Many came to Veritarn, not for power, but to learn and to heal. Even Korak, the proud warrior, changed. He approached Samira one day, without his armor, and spoke quietly. I was wrong, he said. I thought strength was the sword's key, but I see now it is something deeper. Maybe I have much to learn. Samira smiled warmly. Kindness is a journey for all of us. As the stars shone brighter above, Veritarn became a beacon of hope. The Guardian stood watch, not as a weapon, but as a symbol of peace. The sword was no longer a prize to win, but a reminder that kindness can change worlds. Samira looked up. At the sky, feeling a deep calm inside her heart, the journey was far from over. But the first step had been taken, and on Veritarn, the future was filled with light. Years passed on Veritarn, and the story of the ancient sword became a legend shared across the galaxy. It was no longer just a tale of power or strength, but a message of kindness and hope. Dr. Samira Lee had stayed on the planet, becoming a teacher, a friend, and a guardian of peace. The Galactic Union had created a special council made up of many worlds to protect the temple and the values it represented. Every morning, Samira walked to the temple to see the sword glowing softly on its stone. The guardian stood quietly nearby, a silent protector who had become more than just an ancient figure. He was now a symbol of unity. Visitors came regularly, children, leaders, scientists, and artists all, eager to learn about kindness and the true meaning of strength. One day, a young boy from a distant planet asked Samira, "Why does the sword glow only for kind hearts?" Samira smiled and replied, "Because kindness is the strongest power in the universe. It can open doors that strength alone cannot." Not all planets were peaceful, of course. Conflicts and challenges still existed, but the message of Veritorn spread like light in the darkness. Slowly, more beings chose understanding over fighting. Samira often thought back to the first time she touched the glass bead instead of the golden star. That simple choice had changed everything. It wasn't about being the strongest or the smartest. It was about listening, caring, and choosing what was right even when it was hard. One evening, a great storm came to Veritarn. The skies turned dark and the winds howled like wild animals. Lightning flashed across the horizon, and the rain fell in heavy sheets. Inside the temple, the sword's light flickered. The guardian's form shimmered, as if the storm's energy was reaching deep inside the planet. Samira stood beside the guardian, calm and steady. "This storm is a test," she said softly, "just like the sword's test." The guardian nodded. "Kindness is not only about calm days," he said. "It is also about standing strong when the world is difficult." As the storm raged on, Samira felt a quiet strength grow inside her. The guardian stepped forward and raised his hand toward the sword. The blade shone brighter, its light pushing back the darkness. Outside, the storm began to slow. The winds softened, and the rain turned to gentle drops. The next morning, the skies were clear again, and the stars shone more brightly than ever. The storm had reminded everyone that kindness was not easy. It required courage, patience, and hope. Samira knew that the journey was never finished. But with the guardian and the sword as symbols, she believed the galaxy could grow brighter. One day, the Galactic Union sent a new visitor, young ambassador, from a distant star system. She came to learn about Veritarn and the power of kindness. Her name was Lena. Lena was full of questions. She wanted to understand how a simple choice could lead to so much peace. Samira welcomed her warmly. Together, they walked through the temple, listening to the stories of the Tyrillians and the Guardian. At the sword, Lena reached out and touched it gently. The sword glowed softly, and Lena smiled. "You don't have to lift it," Samira said. "Kindness is the real power, and it lives inside all of us." The story of Veritarn and the ancient sword continued to grow. It became a symbol of hope for many worlds, a reminder that kindness can change hearts and open doors. Samira looked up at the stars one quiet night. The galaxy was vast and full of challenges, but also full of light. She felt ready to face whatever came next, because now she knew the greatest strength was not in fighting but in caring, and that was a power no one could ever take away.